We'll just go ahead and kick this off. How'd you go with the sixes and nine exercise?
Yeah, I did one.
Yeah, did anything click? Did anything open up for you?
Well, it's just a really easy way to make a decision on something when you do it that way, I guess. So you still there?
Yep, yep, still
Yep.
here.
Yeah. So yeah, it really highlighted the thing that I thought might be the best way of looking at something came forward as the obvious choice.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I really liked it. I know that it was a big thing that helped Cedric determine where to go with his life, and I just thought that it could really help to just make a few things more clear. Now, that exercise, I just did a couple of things what I should do moving forward. So, could have either done, do webinars, live events, YouTube, education platforms, joint ventures. And the thing that, ended up having the biggest return with the least amount of difficulty ended up being joint ventures. Now, webinars as well, but then also when I added my purpose into it, webinars actually jumped off, actually fell off of it, and live events, YouTube, and joint ventures actually were all tying for first and second place. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a basic one, but it's very simple, and it really kind of defines where we should be aiming. Today's exercise is from a guy named Jim Collins, and he is a profound writer. He wrote a book that quite a lot of people know. It's called "From Good to Great: Why Some Companies Make It." I think that's
Yeah.
the hashtag. But and today's today's exercise is really diving deep into one of the main concepts in the entire book. Now, there's quite a bit in the book, but this is just one hash off of it. So the sixes and nines can help us to see where we want to aim. This can get a lot more granular and find out, there's just a really great exercise to determine directions in moving forward. So let's see here, just open this all the way up. So this is the hedgehog concept. Now, so what is the hedgehog concept? So it's based on an ancient Greek proverb. The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. So outfoxed in the parable, the fox tries to sneaks around, it pounces, it races, it plays dead, but it ends up walking away defeated with scars from its nose being pricked. But the fox never learns that the hedgehog knows how to do one big thing perfectly, and that's defend itself. So the hedgehog and the fox. In 1953, a philosopher named Isaiah Berlin wrote an essay called "The Hedgehog and the Fox," and Berlin divided people into two groups: foxes, hedgehogs. So foxes, they pursue many goals, pursue many interests, all at the same time. Their thinking is scattered, unfocused, and ultimately they achieve very little. So foxes are what I'd have to say a high majority of people are today. So we've all got all these new shiny things. We've got different goals, different interests, all going on at the same time. I mean, I know that I have this in my world. I know that a lot of people are probably struggling with it today. There's just so many things trying to catch our interest, but it's you end up being a uh, what is it, jack of all trades but a master of none. But the hedgehogs, they simplify the world. They have a clear focus on a single overarching vision, which they then achieve. So the book Good to Great, which is a 2001, it's a classic book from Jim Collins. Jim Collins has written books that have sold over 10 million copies. So he's got some really epic books out there. Um, So he wrote about how organizations will more likely succeed if they can identify the one thing that they can do best, which is their hedgehog concept. So after identifying its hedgehog concept, its leaders should devote all of their energy and resources to pursuing it. When the going gets tough, it's the organizations that focus on what they're good at that survive and thrive, says Collins. So this is now applying the hedgehog concept. So there's three separate assessments. Number one, which is understanding what your people are truly passionate about. Now, this is probably one of the biggest ones in here, because if you don't have the passion, you don't have the extra drive that's going to take you to the the end goal. And number two is going to be identifying what the organization does better than anyone else does. So there's two different parts of this I'll go over, but then there's understanding the economic engine, which is good at generating revenue, really. So finding your passions. So the way Jim has explained this is, what is the thing that would wake you up in the morning and make you very energized and feel like, wow, I hope I live a really long life so I can continue chasing that one passion. So that's where you find out, you feel what your main passions are, and what gets you up in the morning, what keeps you working late voluntarily. I mean, this that I'm doing right now, even though it's not totally buttoned up, is really what I'm passionate about. It's what I like doing. It's what I like improving. I will do this for free. Hopefully in the future I'll be doing it for money, but right now, I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. So this is my passions. What do your people feel most excited about? So what actually gets them excited? What are things that they can pursue? How does the purpose of the organization inspire them? What motivations and values do you look for when you hire new team members? Then look at your organization's mission and vision statements. What are its core values, and do your people buy into them? So now it's understanding what you do best. So understanding what your organization can do better than anyone else. It's, if you cannot be number one in the world at your core business, then this shouldn't be your hedgehog concept. Now, this is kind of a subjective thing, but at the end of the day, Apple computers, Steve Jobs is actually one of the things that inspired Jim Collins to write and get into some of this. He was a professor at Stanford, so he had Steve Jobs come, and he found one of the things with Steve was he was so passionate, even though this is after he got kicked out of Apple. The board of directors forced him out. He was still so passionate, and he was still building. He was building Pixar, and he was building another company, and he was still so passionate about it. So it was obvious that was his hedgehog. And it's also important to know what your organization will never be the best at. So just as one side, you can be the best at something, it's also really important to define what you cannot be the best at. So if I wanted to be the absolute best YouTuber of all time, I might not be able to do it. I'm more of a people person. I'm more of a face-to-face. I think I thrive a bit more when I'm on stage. So it would be easy for me to define that it would take a lot of work, and it would be a lot harder. There's a bit more competition for me to do it on YouTube rather than what fits my personality, which might be more live events. So you want to be honest when you consider these weaknesses. So it's not always easy to look at where your weaknesses are and determine where you can't be the best in the world at. Remember that not being the best is in certain areas is okay. Understanding what your organization can be good at is far more powerful. So use any tools such as SWOT analysis, core competencies analysis, and USP analysis. All of these different ones you can Google if you're more interested. Now let's discover what your economic engine is. So every organization must understand how to generate sustained cash flow and profitability. So a single economic denominator, and this is usually profit per X. Now, X is the single measurement that can have the greatest and most sustainable impact on your organization's long-term success. So in that, some common economic denominators include profit per customer, profit per employee, profit per location, profit per geographic region, profit per part manufactured, profit per brand, profit per sale. So obviously, all of these are going to depend on what your business is, and then that X is going to be X per customer, X per location. So you fill that in for each one. So an economic engine example. So most airline industries historically use total revenue per available seat mile. So there's several different factors in there. But what Southwest Airline did was they adopted a profit per airplane as its denominator. So focusing on airplanes rather than on available seats meant that Southwest took different strategic decisions from its competitors. As a result, it has become the most consistently profitable US airline. So just taking that X factor and changing it from X per revenue to, or yeah, per available seat to X per flight, it completely changed their business model, and it's worked pretty well for them. So then you want to review and communicate your strategy. Now, you want to look at your original strategy. We might not have one now, we're probably starting from scratch, but this is where you want to actually see if, if you already owning a business, if you're already running a business now, does it align with your hedgehog concept? And maybe it's time to have a new strategy. It's important for your organization to align strategy to reflect its true passion, talent, and economic capabilities. Linking your explanation back to people's personal passions and values can be a useful way to win their sport. Now, it's also something to think about if your if your strategy does not align with some of the people within your industry, then you might have to start making some hard decisions moving forward. But yeah, so once implemented, your new properly aligned strategy will provide long-term focus for your team members, vendors, and customers, resulting in a better engagement, productivity, and profitability. So this is now where we take those three different areas and we want to find where the overlap is, where the three circles converge. This is where your hedgehog is found. This needs to be the central vision that should guide your organization's strategy. Don't worry if the hedgehog concept isn't obvious right away. You may have to do some additional analysis or explore different combinations to find the core vision that best works for you. So, there was no fancy pictures or anything in this one, but at the end of the day, it's really simple. It just takes some time to really define your passions, what you can be the best in the world at the same time, also defining what you can't be the best in the world at, and then find out what drives your economic engine. So between those three things, when you find the intersection of that circle, that's what really makes companies go from good to great. And this can also be applied just in our normal lives, what direction we want to take in our life. And yeah, so homework is define what you are deeply passionate about, define what you can be the best in the world at, and what your economic engine is. So I've got a couple of videos that I'll link to. Jim Collins, it's a short one that this is coming right from the horse's mouth. So he goes over what the hedgehog concept is. But then if you really want to watch one of the best talks I've ever heard, there's a bonus. I'll also link to this. This will be Jim's 7 questions, which is learning from young leaders. This is I think it's about a 45-minute talk, but it is very, very well done. I've already listened to it 1.5 times, and yeah, I'll probably finish it for the second time tonight. There's so many gold nuggets in here, and if you like that as well, Jim doesn't do many talks. He doesn't. He's not out in the public sphere all that often, but he did a really amazing podcast. Um, let's see, I was just listening to it earlier today. It's on the Tim Ferriss show, so it is a rare interview, but it's also just littered with gold nuggets. I've got so many quotes that I've taken from that one, backed up, and listened to it. So yeah, what did you think of the hedgehog concept?
Yeah, again, it makes a lot of sense. I think being able to define those things for everyone is probably something that some people struggle with, and I know I struggle sometimes with identifying some of those things.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
well, that's, especially with today's day where we have all of these flashy things going on all the time, I think it is most important for us to actually look internally, like Jim actually even talks about getting away from our phones, getting away from technology for a while so that there's like gaps in our space so that we can reflect and look inside and read books and do things away from technology. Technology is a great tool, but even in Silicon Valley today, I mean, you've got people like Steve Jobs that he didn't want his kids to play on tablets and phones because of the long-term negative consequences that can happen from being addicted to screens. And there's going to be quite a resurgence because it's just gotten to a point where, I mean, how much time do people really spend on these things when, they could be spending it on things that we are deeply passionate about, spending on times where we can be the best in the world at that. And also then you can be making money on it. What can drive your economic machine? So
yeah, and I think a lot of the time, some of those things require technology, but it's being honest with yourself and using it for what it's used for, not for just a distraction.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah, very
just
good.
I just deleted Facebook off my phone the other day because I was like, I don't even use this anymore. I was using it when I was uploading a lot of news, but I don't even use it. And I kind of wish I could delete Messenger off my phone, but I still use it so much. So many different friends contact me, but it's pretty crazy that they turn our microphones on secretly and listen to us, and it's pretty absurd.
Doesn't surprise me now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Awesome.
very cool. All right. Well, there's more homework and more of a deep dive into direction of our lives.
Yeah, no, very very pertinent for me too. I'm remodeling what I'm doing, and I'm using some of your information as my guide.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we might have to change the date because there's quite a few people that can't make Tuesday afternoons. But thank you for joining us, Dean. And yeah, I'll have another really great exercise for us next week.
Thanks, Nick.
No
Talk to you
worries,
soon.
buddy. All right. Later.
Cheers, mate.